Welcome to Ensuring Quality in STEM and Beyond. And my name is Jim Snyder. I am the Director of Marketing and Engagement here at Quality Matters. So as we start this, I want to thank Science Interactive as well for co-hosting this event. But a little bit about Quality Matters first. And Quality Matters is the global organization leading quality assurance in online and innovative digital teaching and learning environments. It provides a scalable quality assurance system for online and blended learning used within and across organizations. And when you see QM's certification marks on courses or programs, it means they've met QM's course design standards or QM program review criteria in a rigorous review process. Quality Matters has over 1,300 member institutions in over 30 countries. We're used by higher ed, K-12, and other organizations offering continuing and professional education development. It's a scalable process led by credentialed reviewers that's based on feedback and continuous improvement. And QM certified courses are recognized as quality courses at the national level. And lastly, thank you for attending this webinar. And since you attend this webinar, I'll be providing in the links over the next couple of minutes some free resources we have. We offer these free webinars every so often. So that will I will put that link in there to some of those webinars. We offer an accessibility and usability resource site that is also free for anybody. We have a bridge to quality online course design standards for both higher ed and K-12, as well as we have access to our research library. We do offer professional development around addressing accessibility and usability. And we do have coming up in November in Tucson, where it will be warm, in November, our annual QM Connect conference. So with that, that's all that I have to share about Quality Matters. So I want to introduce Caitlin Runny-Jancy from Science Interactive to kick off the rest of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. And thank you so much for having us. We are so excited to be here today with the team from Doane University to share more about ensuring quality online offerings for science lab courses, particularly in Doane's Open Learning Academy. I'm joined today by Dr. Andrea Holmes and Erin May from Doane University, and wanted to share a little bit about them. Dr. Andrea Holmes is a professor of chemistry and the coordinator of online learning at Doane University. She's an organic chemist with a PhD from NYU and postdoctoral training at Columbia University, where she currently holds courtesy associate professorships at 2 University of Nebraska institutions. Her research specializes in drug detection methods, sensor design, and molecular analysis. And she's a former president of the Nebraska American Chemical Society. She's received prestigious honors, including the NSF Presidential Early Career Award and Henry Dreyfuss Teacher Scholar Award, and has secured multi-million-dollar funding from the NIH and NSF for innovative projects in nanohybrid materials and drug detection technologies. Erin May is the Director of Extended Learning Opportunities at Doane University. She has a BS in Secondary English and a Master's of Education in Educational Leadership, and over 13 years of administrative and recruitment experience in higher education directly related to the development and growth of online non-degree programs related to STEM, career, and technical education. She's passionate about reducing barriers for students and increasing accessibility to higher education through non-degree programs in the online ecosystem. So Andrea, Erin, thank you both so much for being here today. We're really excited to learn more about the programs you're supporting at Doane. To kick things off today, I'm excited to share with you some of the data from Science Interactive's 2024 annual lab report. In our lab report, we interviewed students, faculty, and administrators regarding the state of online lab courses, really to understand the challenges and the benefits that come with building out online lab courses. Among our nearly 1,900 participants, student participants, just over 50% were science majors and 91% had taken at least one online lab course. with top disciplines represented, including chemistry, biology, and anatomy and physiology. When it came to our faculty participants, 3/4 of our participants were adjunct or tenured professors, with the rest being deans and department chairs. And 50% of our participants had taught at least one online science course within the last year. Community and technical colleges were slightly higher in representation, with 60% of the faculty surveyed coming from these types of institutions. As I mentioned, the goal of the annual lab report was to understand the current state of online laboratory courses, including trends versus on-campus labs, why students are opting for online labs, and like I said, the challenges and benefits of these types of courses. And so to kick things off, we really wanted to understand what the trends were overall in online laboratory courses. Very similar to Quality Matters Chloe 9 report, which looks at the overall trends in enrollment, online course enrollment, 74% of the deans we surveyed reported increases in their online lab course enrollment, while 56% noted a corresponding reduction in their on-campus lab enrollment. And so that really brought us to thinking, why were students opting for online lab options? And of the students we surveyed, for some, it was simply just the convenience of having an online course available to them, not having to get to campus at 8 a.m. and rolling into the lab. But really, for 90% of the students we surveyed who'd taken an online lab course, having that online option was essential to being able to take that lab course. They were students who were working, who had family or childcare obligations, deployed military students or remote students who couldn't get to a traditional campus to have that lab course experience. And when we asked what these students would have done if the online option had not been available, 32% would have enrolled at another institution where an online course was available, and 30% of those students would not have enrolled in the course at all if it hadn't been online. So for these students, the ability to take that lab course was really dependent on having it available to them online. So how are students, or how are institutions responding to this increasing desire for online courses? When we look at the Chloe 9 report, nearly 70% of institutions are working to create online versions of their on-campus programs and courses. And when it comes to STEM courses in particular, this trend carries out. When we spoke to our STEM leaders on the actions they're currently taking on campus, they're increasing the number of lab courses offered online. And with that, they're looking at ways to provide students with a similar hands-on lab experience to what they would have in that campus lab environment. Additionally, for faculty who are moving their courses online for the first time, leaders are really also looking for ways to expand resources and support to help these faculty create quality online lab experiences. But bringing a lab online is not without its challenges. And so in our survey, we asked our faculty members what were the top challenges that they experienced in bringing their lab courses online. For 80% of STEM leaders, recreating that hands-on lab experience represents the top challenge in bringing the course online. How do I take my Bunsen burner, my beakers? How do I get those to students? How do I know students can do a hands-on lab safely at home? All of those considerations come into that hands-on experience and maintaining that quality and rigor of the campus environment. Additionally, with the hands-on materials, there are concerns about making sure that's still affordable for students. You know, there are many materials used in an on-campus lab. How do we make sure that that's going to be affordable for a student in their home? And then finally, resources. Limits in time and resources for their faculty and being able to bring these courses online is also a concern. But there are ways to circumvent these challenges. Of our instructors we surveyed, when it came to quality, 75% of instructors using a hands-on lab kit said they're comparable to that in-person lab experience. Additionally, when it came to affordability, 71% of students who had used a lab kit said that that cost was aligned with the value of being able to do that lab from home. Finally, when it came to resources, 77% of instructors using hands-on labs said they were easy to incorporate in their course as they went through that design process. So when it comes to offering a lab online, there's several approaches. You can opt for hands-on, where students are working with materials directly at home, or you can opt for simulation-based labs, which is more of a digital experience where students are interacting with a computer to gain those laboratory skills. And so we wanted to dive into what modality was preferred by our faculty members. When it came to hands-on labs, administrators, instructors, and students all agreed that having a hands-on opportunity within the online lab course was essential. For deans and department chairs, almost 85% rated hands-on labs as the most effective format for online student learning. Instructors found that 90% of students using hands-on labs gained the knowledge and skills they needed to move on to subsequent courses. And that number carried through for both non-majors and majors-based science courses. And for students, 85% of them found that the hands-on labs made their online course more engaging. So with that in consideration, what does that mean for virtual simulation-based labs? When we spoke to our instructors, 60% of the instructors found that using only virtual simulations, or excuse me, instructors using only virtual simulations said that 60% of the time that students would have learned more had they had a hands-on experience. So when it came to learning outcomes, the outcomes for students using hands-on labs were improved versus a virtual simulation. But there were benefits to incorporating a simulation into a hands-on based lab course. Both students on campus and online found that incorporating virtual simulations made their overall course more engaging to them. Students also said that having the ability to do a virtual pre-lab would have helped them feel more prepared when they entered either the campus or the online lab environment. So there are benefits to incorporating in a virtual piece in tandem with the hands-on lab component. So when it comes to students, what do they prefer? We find that most students really prefer a mix of hands-on and virtual labs used together. And that's because there's benefits to both modalities. With hands-on labs, students have an authentic experience. It's much more similar to what they would have done on campus. It equips the students with real-world skills that they can take on to subsequent lab courses. And it also helps support the rigor and in some cases, the transferability of that course to other institutions. However, with virtual labs, these can allow students to observe the unobservable, whether that be having experience with a piece of equipment that's too expensive to send to a home environment, or to do a reaction that's too hazardous because of the chemicals that are used. It's a low stakes environment that allows them to practice when it comes to that pre-lab concept and really supplement their learning, and it does support different learning styles. So when it comes to key takeaways for student success, what we find is delivering a course mix that supports diverse student needs is essential. Using hands-on labs for a really high quality, authentic lab experience, and supplementing that hands-on with virtual simulations to reinforce learning. So thank you so much for joining me on a little bit from our annual lab report. And I'm excited to pass things over to Erin to talk more about what Doane University has been doing for their online chemistry courses.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Erin May. I'm from Doane University, and I'll be co-presenting our information today with Dr. Andrea Holmes. I want to give you a little bit of background about who Doane University is before we dive in, because I think that if you're from a small school, you might not think that this is an opportunity that you can dive into, but we are small. We're tiny but mighty, and it does take a lot of hands to execute something that's online, but I don't think it's out of reach for other institutions who aren't necessarily having large departments to help facilitate or execute online courses. So we're a liberal arts university located in Crete, Nebraska. So if you're familiar with Lincoln, Nebraska, we're about 30 miles south of there. And our faculty primarily serve residential students in on-ground courses. And so online teaching was a little bit of a leap for most of our faculty. And so we really had to think through who we were serving and who we were missing that needed to be served through online courses. And at Doane, we identified that there was really a student demographic that Kate spoke about, was that we had adult learners and post-bac students who were pivoting in their careers, or have decided that they wanted to go on to graduate school and they needed access to STEM related content online. Everybody can deliver a humanities or social sciences course, but for some reason, it wasn't believed that our science courses could do the same. And so what we wanted to focus on was what were our goals and what could our objectives be to ensure that we could deliver quality courses to this particular student demographic. And we wanted to ensure that our courses were accessible. So we had to be really mindful about the flexibility and schedule, and ensure that we could offer a quality and equitable experience. So big picture today, what Doane University's Open Learning Academy looks like is that we are offering over 40 courses, primarily in the STEM areas, ranging from biology, chemistry, math, and physics. We offer a number of term start dates, so that students can essentially start in our courses about every 8 weeks. And then we've been playing around a little bit with the format in that we're offering them. We know that we are serving students who are working part-time or full-time. We have some students who want to stay on track at their home institution and might be short a science requirement. And so we've been offering courses now in 5-week formats, 8-week formats, and then 16-week formats. And we offer self-paced, time-bound courses and instructor-led paced courses. Today, Dr. Andrea Holmes is going to specifically talk about how we worked through the chemistry developments, but large scale, this is really what our program looks like today. And it is built from the ground up. So I know a lot of you might be thinking, are you using an OPM? We're not. This is all internal. We're an internal program management system. And we've been able to do this, like I said, with a very small scale staff to be able to execute these types of courses. Go to the next slide. So when we decided that we were going to teach online, we really needed to identify what that objective was. And I think for many STEM faculty, the hands-on lab component was really, really essential to be able to have as a deliverable for our students. And so we really focused on providing an equitable course offering for our students. So we needed to ensure that all of our online courses had the exact same learning objectives and outcomes as an on-ground course. We also wanted to ensure that we were achieving department consensus with our course developments. I think many of you, if you're faculty or if you're an administrator, that sometimes that buy-in isn't 100%. And so we determined that when we were going to build these online courses, we wouldn't build them in isolation. It wouldn't be a single faculty member. We would compose a team from that department to develop the courses together. And it's really, I think, brought our departments closer in thinking about what they want their online courses to look like. And they're really cohesive. So it's, if you're taking Gen Chem 1, you're going to have a really cohesive experience when you go into Gen Chem 2. We also had to identify the non-negotiables for our online courses. And of course, a main component of that was that we had to have the hands-on component for our chemistry classes. And then faculty really wanted to ensure that they still had the autonomy within their courses so that they felt like their own. I think a lot of conversation around, I don't want to teach a plug and play course. Somebody's developed it and now you just hand it over and I'm teaching it. We didn't want that. We still wanted faculty to feel like they could have their own brand on these courses. And so we had to build out that faculty autonomy for our faculty. So with that, once we identified the objective and the non-negotiables, we developed a framework utilizing our instructional designers. So most of our faculty are very traditionalists. They primarily their pedagogy is in on-ground teaching. And so we really had to leverage our instructional design team, who are all certified in quality matters. And so with the team builds, we identified an instructional designer for each team, and they ensured some of those non-negotiables were happening. One, we wanted to ensure their quality, the design, and the content was going to be accessible. And then any third-party tools that we were going to integrate into our course, they were always vetted by our ADA compliance specialist on our instructional design team. So that was really important for us, because sometimes courses get developed without that consideration. And we wanted to make sure that we were going to be compliant in our online courses. The other really key part of our framework is not only did we have to develop a team approach to development, but we also had to identify who would be our coordinator, who would ensure that timelines were met, that deliverables were being met on time. And so we actually identified what we call an online curriculum coordinator. And for the chemistry department, this was Dr. Holmes. It wasn't necessarily the program chair. It needed to be somebody that was experienced in online teaching, but somebody that could also ensure that the teams were meeting those deadlines. If you've ever had a faculty member working in isolation with an instructional designer, I know that we've had instances at our institution where that online course development, like, it could take a year. Oh, I've been working on it, but I really haven't stayed on track. And so it can be an uncomfortable conversation for our IDs to have with our faculty to ensure that they're progressing through that development. And so this was really key for us. We had to have a coordinator who was facilitating those team meetings, who was ensuring people were developing their content, and then executing that final product. We also wanted to ensure that when we put a new online course in production, that at least one developer was teaching that course in the new term. We wanted to make sure that we were identifying if there were any issues with the course for its first run, so that we could go back and readdress those with the team developers. Perhaps maybe a module really required a reteaching of a particular previous module, or that the third party that we wanted to use, maybe that didn't work out as well as we had anticipated. And so that was really vital, that once we got through the development, that when we put it into the teaching and production, we were able to have an immediate revision cycle of any issues that came up within that course. We also wanted to ensure that once we put a course into production, that we built in a revision process. I'm sure many of you have teachers who have kind of this iteration, this ongoing iteration of an online course that they've been teaching maybe for a couple of terms. And we wanted to ensure that we were bringing a team back together to review the course, the original course, in its entirety. This way we could look at the textbook, we could look at the labs, we could make sure that the courses were still really fresh and relevant, that they're not stale. And of course, it also helps ensure that the quality and the rigor is being maintained through that revision process. So formally, we've established a 3-year revision cycle where we're really doing a deep dive. But term to term, we're also kind of touching base on any issues that might be coming up with a new build. We also wanted to ensure that if we were going to be offering online courses to a demographic that couldn't access our student services on campus, that we wanted to ensure that those were being also accessible online. So we needed to ensure that we had 24/7 tutoring services. We needed to ensure that our faculty were having office hours, so that those students can meet with them via Zoom or during a set time. And then we also, a non-negotiable really was proctoring. Our departments wanted to ensure that we had proctored exams, that we had proctored quizzes throughout the course. And so that was really, once we got to that point, we really had a strong framework that allowed us to kind of move through the development process. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Holmes, who's going to walk you through specifically how chemistry tackled the development process utilizing this framework.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andrea Holmes. I'm very excited to talk about how we at Doane University implemented a very, very high quality online chemistry offering. Again, our objective is to design equitable course offerings for our student demographic. And our goals are to develop online courses that are completely aligned with our residential courses. And the team approach was absolutely essential for faculty to really buy into this whole concept of online is equitable to on ground. Also, as we developed the courses, we kept always in mind the academic rigor so that there is a part of the course that's absolutely non-negotiable for the faculty member to teach. So those non-negotiable pieces basically assure equity across all of the different sections. But faculty autonomy is still very critical so that a faculty member still feels that they have the ability to execute academic freedom. So when I took this role of the online coordinator position, this was not only absolutely important for the online program, but it was also important for the residential campus, because the two programs were somewhat completely separated. And when I took on this role, I realized the reason why these two modalities were so separated is because the residential faculty did not really think that the online chemistry courses were up to spiff, so to say, that there were a lot of problems with course material that was found on the web, on openly available for students to copy and paste and then basically cheat on exams. And so the academic rigor was not up to the standards that the residential faculty members felt like this was their kind of course that they wanted to put their signature on. So when I took on this role, I collaborated with all the faculty in the chemistry department and also with our online faculty to determine what is it that we need to do in order to do a complete revamping of all of our chemistry offerings. And all of these buttons that you see here on the screen basically were the fundamental guiding principles that made us successful in building a very, very strong chemistry curriculum. We worked with our instructional designers to make sure that the courses that we were building were fully ADA compliant. We added a very rigorous proctoring tool where various events such as exams and quizzes are proctored so that it avoids any kind of like academic misconduct. We placed new textbooks in there. We made new videos from instructors. We added new types of assignments, traditional assignments, and adaptive and non-adaptive assignments. We replaced all of the quizzes. We placed new exams in all of the courses with very robust databases that can rotate in and out per term so that it's not always the same question that's being used. We have new discussions and hired new instructors, added a new grading scheme, and again, expanded our course offerings for maximum student flexibility to 5, 8, and 16-week formats, either paced or self-paced. But most importantly, the most important decision that we made that took some deep thinking of what we're going to do is how are we going to give the student that meaningful hands-on experience, that lab experience where students have to actually put their minds and hands together to execute an experiment. And this was key for a lot of faculty members that I was working with to really say, okay, if the student is doing these experiments by themselves and they have to do lab reports and they have to measure things and they have to upload images and a faculty member can give feedback, then that is an equitable experience. And that is why we chose Science Interactive as our partner for this chemistry offering. So why again did we pick Science Interactive Labs? Again, most important goal for us was to align the curriculum that's in place online, that it's equitable to what the students are experiences when they walk physically into a classroom. We wanted to give students that very important critical experiential learning in the online environment. And this really allowed acceptance, not just internally in our university, but more and more faculty and other universities, when they're requesting transcripts from our students, they specifically are asking whether those labs were simulated labs or whether they were actually hands-on labs. So we oftentimes have to provide documentation and assert when these credits get transferred that in fact the labs were hands-on. And that is also visible in the syllabus. So this acceptance and transferability to other universities and graduate programs was also a driving guide for us to partner with Science Interactive. And then the really, really important piece is that Science Interactive and Doane University, we actually are not just transactional, we actually build a full partnership. Science Interactive comes and visits us on campus so that we can have catch-up discussions and introduce new faculty to the team at Science Interactive. Last November, we co-presented at the Online Accelerator Conference in Orlando and presented this concept. So we're truly partners and not just transactional institutions that work together. Yes, I want to talk a little bit about the kits and the curriculum. So on the right-hand side here, you see a classic chemistry kit. So you can see that the kit includes all of the different components that are necessary to execute an experiment. It also has the safety equipment. It has all of the measuring devices, the glassware. It has the heating ability. It has all of the chemicals. So everything is delivered to the student, to their house. The materials that the students receive are all lab grade materials. Also, the catalog that Science Interactive has is very comprehensive. So we were able to handpick exactly the customized lessons that we wanted for our courses. And of course, all of the experiments were designed by Science Interactive, by their team, with safety in mind. So everything, all of the lab kits are coming with PPEs like goggles and gloves, and the experiments are all done on the micro scale. And there is a lab safety training that every student has to do before they even lay hands on any chemicals. So these streamlined logistics are really important for our courses. Wanted to kind of like touch base on the organic chemistry hands-on alignments. These are the experiments that we as a faculty team decided to select from the catalog from Science Interactive. And the reason why we picked these experiments is because these experiments we're actually doing in the classroom as well. Molecular modeling is very important for students to get the experience of putting bonds together and atoms together to build molecules. The isolation and purification of caffeine teaches, the different separation methods that we teach in organic chemistry, or the chromatography of food dyes, the hydrolysis of acetyl, the synthesis and analysis of soap, and the synthesis of fragrant esters. So these were the experiments we picked for organic chemistry because these are the ones that we also do on ground. For general chemistry, the team also looked at the curriculum, what's being taught on ground, and then picked from the catalog these hands-on experiments, which are the lab techniques and measurements, limiting reagents, Boyle's law, reaction order and rate laws, solubility, and titration of acetic acid in vinegar, and the Beer's law. And for biochemistry, which is a little bit more of an advanced level course, it's a 300 level junior course, we picked 4 experiments: enzymes, temperature and pH, extraction of DNA, the use of buffers, as well as macromolecules of live amino acids. So what we decided, and why this is a very, very good tool, is we also decided to do a multi-modality learning for the student. So in addition to students getting the hands-on experience with the actual chemicals and reagents, we're also adding virtual labs for them to do. And the virtual labs here that you can see on the screens are the ones that we added to all of our chemistry courses. We felt it was important that the student gets the experience of both types of teaching, hands-on as well as virtual. And this concept also helps to have the virtual labs there, because what we did in our course design, we placed the virtual labs in the earlier parts of the course, so that when the student, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, what it looks like when the student orders the lab kit and things like that. But to have these virtual labs available at the earlier onset of the course allows the students enough time to order the lab kits so that the lab kits arrive in time at the later part of the semester so they can conduct the experiments. So let me talk a little bit about what this all looks like for us from the student's perspective. We implemented a week 0 in all of our chemistry courses that use Science Interactive. And in that week 0, basically students have access to one module that talks about how to order the Science Interactive lab kit. So in week 0, the student goes in, they get their welcome message, and then they see, oh, this is, I'm using a hands-on lab kit, and these are the instructions. They receive the lab kit in week 1, if the students order it in week 0. That's one of the challenges I'll talk about a little bit later. But once they receive the lab kit in week 1, they can actually do the lab inventory, and they can also do the lab safety module. And then in the earlier parts of the semester, they performed these virtual labs that I was alluding to in the previous slide. And then we picked 3 to 4 labs that they will all conduct in the comfort of their own home. The experiments last anywhere between 2 hours, and sometimes they can run overnight as well, just like in a regular lab on ground. And when the students do these experiments, they actually have to record their results by taking photos, by filling out reports, and sending pictures in the Science Interactive Cloud. And the Science Interactive Cloud then directly interacts with Canvas, and the faculty member goes in and grades those reports. And then they submit the results. And the way how this looks from the faculty side is really, really nice, because the faculty member who designs the course does not have to reinvent the wheel. Everything has been done for the faculty member. All experiments are fully designed, and no instructions need to be developed for the students. It's really, really nice. The questions for the students are already written for the students to complete. The feedback is what students really love, and what we faculty members really want to do, give the students feedback on their work. That's done on the Science Interactive Cloud. The grading is done on the Science Interactive Cloud. And once the faculty member grades the lab, it automatically syncs to the learning system, such as Canvas or Blackboard. And once we implemented these labs, and with this kind of grading, because a lot of the questions that the students have to answer are automatically graded, and some of them are graded by the faculty member. But overall, it has reduced the faculty grading load tremendously by implementing these science interactive labs. And what's interesting is that faculty have to think a little bit outside of the box now, because sometimes we get technical questions like, well, how do I fill out this table and things like that. So oftentimes faculty members don't guide so much in the subject area as much that they guide more in the technical aspects of the platform. So I probably have talked a lot about the amazing things that has happened here with Science Interactive, but I do want to be honest that anytime you implement a new program into your courses, there's always a little bit of a learning curve and some hiccups, and I'm going to share those now. We implemented the week 0 for students to order the kit right away. And unfortunately, students don't always do that, and they procrastinate and they wait and wait and wait. And then they have certain excuses, and then they can fall behind. And then sometimes, then they fall behind and then the labs don't get done. So that is something that we address by constantly sending students reminders and emails saying, oh, you have not ordered your lab kit yet? Then you're falling behind. So we constantly remind them with announcements and emails that by now they should have done this lab, by now they should have done this lab. And so the more you tell them, then the urgency becomes a little bit greater when they say, oh, I better order this because I'm already falling behind. Another challenge is that once you bring in a new platform into these courses, the students as well as the faculty all have to know new technology, right? It's another technology cartridge that's being placed into the LMS system that students and faculty have to get over this learning mountain. When we were integrating the Science Interactive platform into our Canvas courses, most of the integration was flawless. But there was one course that had a couple of hiccups, but the hiccups were easily solved because of this strong bond that we have with Science Interactive and the collaboration. The entire team, it was a holiday and everything. We all worked together to get this integration done so we can launch our courses in time. The other challenge is that the students really think that they can become like MacGyver and do all kinds of funny things when they break things or when they spill things. So you get emails like, hey, can I just go to True Value or to the hardware store and I'll just buy myself a Bunsen burner and heat this up, or I just buy this chemical. And these kind of MacGyver style experiments just are not very safe. And so we discourage all of our students to do these things. But instead, when something breaks, we encourage them to reach out to Science Interactive and get replacements. And just like in real life, some of the labs just don't work for all students. It works fine for 90% of them, and 10% like, well, wait, on my food chromatography experiment, none of my spots were moving. I don't know what happened. And, then as a faculty member, then you can say, well, you can try maybe to increase the polarity a little bit, but that these are the results that some students get. They just get results that weren't expected. And then with our advanced course like biochemistry, the catalog selection was not as large in Science Interactive as for organic and for general chemistry. And we're actually working with Science Interactive in co-developing some more advanced labs for biochemistry. And we're also piggybacking on some of the advanced biology labs that we're starting to include into our biochemistry curriculum in the future. So the challenges about clear and concise communication about the labs is key to the success for students to understand that the labs are part of the course. So I want to just wrap up by saying that our commitment to quality at Doane University is very, very large. We're committed to student success. We're committed to virtual and hands-on labs. We want these courses to be rigorous. We want these courses to be aligned with our in-person courses. We want the course objectives to be the same, whether it's on ground or online. And we're also using this commitment to quality and our course redesign, as well as our partnership with Science Interactive and these hands-on experiences for the students. We use it for our marketing and for our communications to potentially new students. So we're using all of these bullet points that you see here, and our faculty is making videos for our marketing and communications department, so we can have more enrichment out there and students can learn what these courses are all about and what they will get when they take these courses. And at this point, I'm done with my part of the presentation, and we're very happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Erin, so much. We do have a couple of questions for you guys in the last few minutes we have here. So Andrea, I think this one's more for you. When it comes to the 5-week, 8-week, 16-week courses, are you using the same set of labs for each of those courses? And are you adapting that lab schedule in any way?
We are using the same set of labs that we have picked for all of the courses, no matter what format it is the same lab assignments. But we are adjusting the schedule for these labs because in a 16-week course, you have a lot more time to do these labs than in a 5-week. So we do adjustments of the due dates of these labs, yes.
And sort of tied into that, how did you determine which labs you wanted to select to be hands-on? And how did you select from that long list of which digital pieces were going to go into each course?
Yes, that's a great question. So it was a collaborative decision between the online and the on-ground faculty members. And we felt like some of the concepts that we're very passionate about, that we're teaching on ground, we felt like those should be the ones that we picked for the hands-on alignments. And then some of the other ones that we picked for virtual, we felt that those virtual labs were in line with still the student to able to get all of the material out of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a hands-on experience.
Awesome, thank you. And then Erin, we had a couple for you as well. When it comes, or maybe Andrea, I have this one for you. When it comes to transferability, you mentioned transferability to other schools. Do you have articulation agreements with other institutions, or do the transcripts denote that the courses are online? How does that work for the students you're working with?
We have a couple of things going on with our online courses. Doane University is a part of a large consortium with the CIC institutions. So through that consortium, those schools can select how those courses will be transcribed at their home institutions. In terms of transferability to other institutions, if we don't have a consortial agreement, we provide the students the information that they need, like the course syllabus, and sometimes a lot of students have to work out how the course will transfer or will be accepted. And I think that's the case for probably a lot of institutions. In terms of how we transcribe our courses, we do not indicate if a English course is taken online. We don't indicate if a biology course is taken online. We have the same exact learning objectives and course outcomes. So if a student completes the course, we don't have separate course prefixes or based on modality. So it's not transcribed differently.
And then I think we have one more question from Tina. How do you handle financial aid and financial aid vouchers within your courses?
So if you're a part of the consortium, the CIC consortium, students can utilize financial aid through that consortium. We obviously have a financial agreement of how the institutions are paid. Students are able to use private loans to take the courses if they're a non-degree seeking student with us. And we have created some one-off financial aid vouchers with our financial aid department in some cases. So we have a couple of options there, but primarily the financial aid is used with the consortial partners.
Awesome. And then Tina, just to sort of clarify on the Science Interactive end, we work with bookstores to provide kits or voucher codes that students can use their financial aid for. We also allow students to purchase the kits directly from us. So there's multiple different ways to get the kits to students, and that really depends institution to institution, what's going to work best for your students and your setup. Okay. I think those are all the questions we have this afternoon. So I'm going to quickly flip over. If you are interested in learning more about the annual lab report that we put together, you can use this QR code here. That'll bring you to the full report. That includes both some of the data I showed earlier on online lab courses, as well as campus-based lab courses. And once again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Erin. It was great to have you with us and to learn more about the programs at Doane. And we thank you all again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week.